With 3 years remaining in their high school careers, the class of 2026 is primed for shakeups along the way in prep baseball's rankings. And that is exactly the case as we dive into this crop of current sophomores. You're watching Coffee and Curveballs, and we are your double shot of espresso in matching jackets, no less. Cory McCartney, along with Shooter Hunt. And Shooter, a dynamic class, a class full of guys who have very quickly earned household name status, and a group whose own abilities kind of forced some shuffling, as did the reclassification of now 2025 Quentin Young.
Yeah, this is a unique class and one that we have not seen before. I'm kind of coining it the Max Clark effect, where a lot of these top end guys are kind of becoming household names at a really young age. Luckily for us as baseball fans, most of it has to do with their baseball ability on the field. But coast to coast, the kids know who these guys are, and there's some superstar talent at the top and some really high ceilings that I'm excited to follow.
It's once again, these current rankings are topped by Florida's Jacob Lombard, brother of George, the fifth-ranked player in the New York Yankees system per MLB Pipeline. He's followed by California's Alex Harrington, a Stanford commit, at number 2. Those guys held those spots, as I said, in the September update. But what sets them apart from the group right now?
Those are just straight dudes. Those are mega guys. Jacob Lombard at the top is for what we've seen and going through this list, it's an older class. Now, I don't know if it has something to do with the COVID situation, but the baseline is at the higher end, closer to that 19 draft age. Jacob's not quite there, which is probably going to help him in the long run. But the fact that he can really hit, there are some times where we love George, but it was like, is Jacob better than him? And I'm sure George is hoping for that, and they're pushing each other, but he can really impact the baseball at a young age. You just don't see what he can do, where you walk away saying, whoa, you can hear it from a different field. Wow, that ball came off different. So we're really excited to see with him. And then you look at Alex Harrington and Grady Emerson, two guys who are teammates on that wonderful Canes national team that's very talented, really interchangeable there. Harrington can really do it at shortstop. He can pick it. There's some aura to him, where there's that it factor in the diamond where he's going to make a play. He's that top of the order guy who can run 6'2", 6'3" frame. He's also a football player. His twin brother, also excellent, both Stanford recruits. And then Grady Emerson, when things are said and done, he could really well be the number 1 player in this class. Left-handed stick from the Dallas area, just not afraid out there. And what I like about Grady is that he just keeps getting better. He's a heady kid, easy to talk to, but the way he can handle that barrel, manipulate planes, and I think there's some infinite power that's going to come to that frame in the long run. But really, in this top 10, any of these guys could be number 1 at the end.
So the new recruiting rules have obviously put a different lens on this class. The numbers 3 through 6 players, though, they've all got that committed box checked. You mentioned Grady Emerson, a TCU commit, but there's also rookie Shepard out of Nevada, who's a Miami commit. Florida recruit Brady Harris out of the Sunshine State. Eli Willits, a Sooners commit from Oklahoma. They all, by the way, slotted up a spot with Young's move to 2025. Take us in those commits within the top 10.
Yeah, when you're talking about, I said this Max Clark effect, rookie Shepard has that too. I mean, he is well known, and for good reason. This guy goes out in the field, he plays hard, he can catch, he plays the infield, play the outfield. I kind of attribute, he's very similar to Alec Thomas, where it's a compact frame, thinking back that the Diamondbacks stand out in the postseason. Compact frame, left-handed stroke, can use all fields, but he has that almost football strong safety frame, but he can really handle the barrel. It's just not him showing brute force out there. Really like what he brings to the field. Brady Harris, I think, can really hit. And when you're looking at that right profile on a high school outfielder, it can be tough. I'm not going to throw out a Dylan Cruz on him right now, but a Floridian product, those right-handed hitters, they have that chance to get better quickly because they're in the state of Florida. The talent level is so high, and there's so many scouts out there, but Brady Harris can really do it. And like I said, I mean, all these guys could be a number 1 in the long run, and even could be now. Eli Willits was an absolute phenom, switch hitter, shortstop. He's a bit younger for this class based on what the other guys are, but he can really pick it. He's going to stick at shortstop and can hit. As that power comes along, he's another guy that could push Lombard at the top.
Here in Georgia, Keon Johnson holds the top spot in the class, made a considerable jump nationally, going from 13th to now 7th. I interviewed Johnson back in January at LakePoint Sports at a showcase. And Shooter, two things that I thought really stood out with him was the maturity and the drive. And his mom told me that they made the over 2-hour drive from Macon early to be the first ones there when the gates open, because he wanted to get an extra work before the showcase even started. I mean, this kid, Shooter, has all the intangibles to go along with a considerable skill set.
I love that drive from him. But the big thing for him, why he jumps up, and when we're having talks internally, this guy's got some unteachable stuff. And what gets valued at the high level, whether it's college, but especially professionally, what do you have that we can't teach? Well, we can add some strength. We can do this. Hey, this bat speed's ridiculous from him. It's huge power potential. He's a good athlete. As physical as he is right now, I think there's still a ton of maturation that will happen in coming years. And I think the ceiling has been set very, very high on Mr. Keon Johnson, especially coming out of Georgia, where they just keep churning out prospects.
Rounding out the top 10 are the first primary pitchers on this list in Florida righty Wilson Anderson, a pair of Texas natives in lefty Chandler Hart, and a new face within the top 10 in Trey Rangel. Break these down, guys, a little bit.
We had to get some pitchers in here eventually, right? It can be easier at that young age. Oh, this guy's throwing the hardest. He's the best. Well, no, we're looking at the projections coming for the future, right? Who's going to be good in the long run? What can we see? Where can this guy get to? Now, Wilson Anderson, he's kind of got the best of both worlds. He's already got a low 90s fastball, full arsenal, wicked secondary stuff. He's getting whiffs in the zone. He plays at a historically excellent program there in Jesuit Tampa, a state power in Florida. For him to be able to play as a freshman on a team that has draft talent year after year says a lot about what he has. He's a frontline Friday night type starter in the SEC, wherever he may end up, but definitely a draft talent to follow. Chandler Hart, a guy that I got to see last year, he's at Allen High School, which usually you're thinking about football when you're thinking of Allen High School in the Dallas DFW area. But at 6'5", 6'6", left-handed pitcher, he's the youngest. He's got a couple older brothers, but from the left side, he can really bring it. It's a bit of a longer arm action, but feel for 3 pitches. He's up to 90 from the left side. You don't find those guys very often where they're 6'6", athlete, hits in the 3 hole as a freshman there at Allen. So can't say enough good things about his future potential. And then Trey Rangel, who came to the future games last year at LakePoint to close out the summer and was just flat out electric. That was the best prospect we saw on the mound. The spin metrics are through the roof. You just don't see that in a kid that young who can rip off bangers close to 3,000 RPM and is running it up in the low to mid 90s. I'd expect him to be pretty steadily in that 92 to 94, probably bumping some 6 by the time the summer comes.
You've got your sights on a handful of impact players a little bit further down the rankings. Again, this is a bit of an abnormality there because there are some recruited and committed players here, and that's obviously not going to be the case for so many in this class going forward. But let's start with Wake Forest bound Carson Bowman, 6'3" lefty out of South Carolina, throws 4 pitches, including a fastball that Shooter's already in the cusp of the 90s.
Now, Bowman was a guy who we had known before. He's been ranked highly. He went through an injury process. So that kind of slowed down. Okay, what's going to happen with this guy? Well, he has bounced back and looked phenomenal with Sammy Esposito, our scouting director in the state of South Carolina. He hopped on there, and the bullpen that he was throwing, that's about as mature as you're going to see from a kid at this age. Spotting to both sides with the fastball, 88, 89 in a bullpen setting. It's going to jump. He's just getting back on the mound. Another guy who's on that Canes national team, he can swing it a bit too. But when you're looking at that frame, the arsenal that he has there, it checks a lot of boxes. And it's you don't have to think about it too hard when you're looking at Carson Bowman.
So no surprise in a class with a lot of impact shortstops, you're eyeing some Tennessee commit Jack Duggan and Illinois recruit Joey Ireland.
Yeah, and Duggan was at a fall event. He's committed to Tennessee. He could just really swing the bat. And those guys from the left side, he's got some power now. It's going to continue coming. The barrel stays in the zone forever. He shows the ability to lift right now. I think he's going to really hit. So he's a guy I'm eyeing for the spring and summer to get locked in on. And then Joey Ireland. I mean, one dynamite name, kid coming out of the Chicago area, 6'6" runner. Can pick it, can do it all. And what we saw this fall from him is that the bat has only gotten better. And now it's starting to become an impact tool. And when we're having our meetings, especially in the Midwest, who are the guys coming out of here each year? hey, we got to be checking out those Indiana, the Illinois, who's coming out Illinois, who's going to be this next big time draft guy, potential day one type. Joey Ireland's a guy that you want to follow because that ceiling's set high. He's going to grow into his frame. The power that he showed flashes of this fall is only going to get better, and he's a 6'6" runner. Bet on athletes.
All right, take us to the outfield. You've circled Texas A&M bound Judd Dowell, a top 5 player in Texas, and Virginia Tech recruit Mason Jones out of Florida.
Yeah, Judd Dowell's just got there's something about him. He's a Lamar kid from the Houston area. He's one that I'm circled. My spring travels will kind of revolve around getting to Houston, and I'll definitely get a chance to see Judd Dowell. But the impact of the baseball, there's some freakiness to the way that he turns the barrel, and it jumps off the bat. I don't want nobody's Mike Trout, but there's some Mike Trout to the hard nose, playing hard all the time, impact the ball, short, simple stroke. I think Judd Dowell could be a superstar in this class when all is said and done. And then you talk about Mason Jones, guy who came to our sophomore state games, which was an outstanding event in Florida, brought together some really talented guys that I'll be writing about in the future. But Mason Jones, I love the way the bat works. It's quick hands. He moves well through impact. And again, those Florida guys, they just get better at an impressive clip. So when you see a swing like this, you kind of know it is going to get better in a hurry, and he's going to get enough reps to where he has a chance to turn into a real draft prospect.
So your piece on PrepBaseballReport.com includes a number of uncommitteds in this class. Let's start with the guy with the Future Games alumni pedigree, one of the top names to know out of Ontario, and that's shortstop Robert O'Meady.
Yeah, and a lot of what we're doing now, there's just aligning better with the pro clubs and the fact that age is an impactful nature or impactful tool for the teams when they're looking at draft prospects, whether it's relative age theory or whatever you're looking for. So we have been looking at that even more so. In Canada, the way that the prepsters come up is different. So we are pushing those guys more into their draft year, where in the past, a guy like O'Meady was thought of as a 27. Well, he's actually a 26 draft type. So he bumped up. It doesn't matter that he bumped up. He's still one of the youngest kids in this class. He's 6'1", 185. And I thought even as a 27, when we were looking at him at the Future Games, he was one of the best prospects there. Left-handed hitter, there's bounce, the ability to burst out of the box with that quick first step. I would expect a ton of college coaches to be glued to him early on in the summer in hopes that August 1st, they can give one call and try to push him to their program. But Robert O'Meady is an excellent guy to follow.
So arms aplenty here, including California righty Blake Killinger, Louisiana's Logan Sorrell, Virginia's Lawson McLeod, and one who's a two-way guy in Illinois' Jory Crocker. McLeod and Sorrell, by the way, these guys are already lighting up the radar guns, both hitting 90.
Yeah, and you talk about Blake Killinger, who's at Orange Lutheran. He's in the Trinity League, but 6'5", 200 pounds. There's reports he's been up to 90 miles an hour. You kind of bet on the Trinity League. A guy like that, people are going to know about him in a hurry. And I'm sure coaches are watching this video right now. They'll be reading what I put out on the site. But circle that name. You need to get early and often looks at that guy. Check out some starts. I mean, it's tough at Orange Lutheran. He may not be cracking the varsity lineup this year. You might have to get to a JV game because this kid's got a chance to be really good. Jory Crocker, you talked about the two-way ability. He's another Illinois kid, 6'2", 170. He's a 6'8" runner, really good athlete on the infield. I think there's some twitch at the plate from the right side, but the ball also jumps out of the hand on the mound. So I think the sky's the limit for him as well. And then Lawson McLeod, another guy like Killinger. He's 6'5", 210, low 90s fastball, hops on the mound. Everything's crisp and polished. He gets able to pound the zone to both sides with the fastball, which is super important. So he's another one to circle heading into the spring and summer. And Logan Sorrell, a guy who probably would have created a ton of buzz last summer, but he broke his hand. So he's out for most of the summer, comes back to the Louisiana State games at LSU, looks the part. Another guy, there's some moxie in the mound, was not afraid to go to the box there at LSU and put on a show. So I'd expect him to have tons of eyes on him, especially in the SEC.
Some more position players of note here. Florida shortstop Jordan Martinez, Indiana outfielder Colt DeHart, Texas shortstop Ashton Ballou, and Tennessee's Luke Pachurik, who has some serious MLB bloodlines. His grandfather, John, played for the Astros back in the 60s. There's John's brothers, Tom, who was a former All-Star, Jim, who's with the Brewers, and Luke's cousin, Nick, is with the Yankees in their system. So this guy's just got an absolute MLB pedigree.
You talk about Luke Pachurik there, and it was literally the note from Hunter Martin was his whole family's been in the big leagues. So a swing like that and the physicality, he's another guy who's able to keep the barrel in the zone for a while. I think there's some huge power potential from him, especially in the opposite field. Colt DeHart, Indiana kid. I mean, he's a guy I want to bet on. He's 6'2", 185. He's a 6'8" runner. There's adjustability at the plate. There's some flick from the left side. The frame is going to continue filling out. I think it's a potential impact bat at the next level. And he might be your guy for all those college coaches listening. But those are really some very talented bats right there. Ashton Ballou, a guy who blew up at the PBR Cup in the fall. Those Texas guys, sometimes they're just different, you know? And then finally, Jordan Martinez, another guy that was at the sophomore state games in the state of Florida. I mean, 97 to 103 exit velocities. It's a right-handed impact bat. We're talking about Lombard at the top. Martinez has that type of impact right now from the right side as well, where there's going to be a lot of bats coming out of Florida in this class.
An exciting group headline, as you just mentioned him again, Jacob Lombard, but no shortage of talented names behind him pushing for that top spot. We will be back again for another episode next week, so make sure you want to stick around to catch that. Until then, I'm Cory McCartney, that's Shooter Hunt, and we'll see you at the Diamond. All right, that was about the easiest work you're ever going to have on here.